I always use this kind of expression that when you talk to people in the insurance industry, you hear so many incredible stories about how people landed in this industry. And often it's around the theme of, I kind of fell into it. And although I can honestly say I didn't grow up thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to be an insurance professional, I think I would be remiss in saying that I fell into it. I come from a family of insurance professionals, insurance brokers. And in fact, I have a large family. I come from the East Coast, and East Coasters tend to love their large families. And I'm certainly one of those individuals. And out of our entire family, I have a brother who's a chef who decided he wasn't going into insurance, and I married a gentleman who is not in the insurance industry. So I got into the industry initially working for my dad in our family-owned brokerage, and realized pretty early on that being the daughter of the owner wasn't as much fun as you might think it would be, and recognized pretty quickly that I had to figure out how to credential myself and get myself professionally educated. So I ended up leaving the East Coast, moving to Toronto, starting with an insurance company in one of their training programs, which helped me build the foundation. And I think I was hooked immediately. And I've been part of the industry for now 28 years. And it's been a terrific ride, and it's not over yet. And I'm just really excited about the next however many years. So that's how I got into the industry.
Got it. Thanks. Julia, how about you?
All right. So a little bit of the same story, except I stayed with my family. So about 30 years ago, my family bought an insurance brokerage as well as a registry office in rural Alberta. And I in between traveling, in between, server jobs, and my dad asked if I would come and help him. So I went for an interim period of time and never left. So I moved from the registry side of things over to the insurance side of things. I did that for the better part of 20 years when I discovered I was getting a little stagnant. So I started serving on boards. So I started with the Insurance Brokers Association of Alberta. It kind of relit my fire for our industry, the networking. I got addicted to the people, the networking, just being able to collaborate with other people. And that brought me forward to being on the national board. And I'm currently serving my second year on their executive. As well as our registry operation goes, I serve as the VP of Finance, and I'm going into my third year with them. And so I'm very proud of that. I cannot get away from insurance, it seems. My significant other is a partner at a brokerage in Calgary. My older son works for an insurer in Calgary. My younger son works part-time for a brokerage in Calgary while going to school. So there's no lack of conversation about insurance in our household. Almost to a fault. We have to sometimes draw a line, but I absolutely love what I do every day.
Yeah, so obviously insurance runs deep in your family blood, which is great. And I think I love how you said that after 20 years, you were looking for something new, but within something that you not only understood and had experiences, but how did you scale up to the next level within your industry? And I think that's really important for, a lot of women, but also people in any industry to understand that you can lose momentum sometimes, and how do you re-energize yourself? And that's a great way to do using your experience and not just kind of throwing it out the window. So thanks for that. And how about you, Lorie?
Well, there's certainly the family connection. That seems to be where a lot of us get started, and I'm certainly in that genre as well. I mean, I've been in the industry for I guess about 30 years, and I didn't choose this profession. I actually graduated from school, and I was going to become an accountant. So I went to work for, it was Pete Marwick Mitchell at the time in downtown Toronto. And I was there for a couple of years. And one day my dad, who owned a family brokerage, Guthrie Insurance Brokers, which he started in the 60s, he called me and said, what are you doing? Why don't you come and join he and my brother Ryan at the family business? And so I did. And so that was back in the 80s. And I mean, what a great career it's been. I mean, my father was a terrific role model for me. Really kind of outlined what the opportunities were like in the industry, which have been awesome. And much like Julia, I joined into the family brokerage, but also got very involved in association work. I was the chair of the academic council at the Insurance Institute for years, president of the Toronto Brokers Association. So, the industry just offers so many avenues, not only for career development, but for participation in other avenues as well. And today I'm the president of Canadian Broker Network, which is an alliance of independent brokerages across Canada who are committed to each other's success. So I did leave the family business, but still love the brokerage side, and I'm still focused on the brokerage side. And again, great career.
Fantastic. I guess there's a common theme between you women on the eternal question, did insurance choose you or did you choose insurance? Ladies, is there a motto or a quote that you guys live by? And what would it be and why has it resonated with you in your career thus far? Lorie, maybe we'll start with you. I'll go back.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the motto I live by really is around commitment. And, if you're going to commit to something, do it well, follow through, do what you say you're going to do. I think today, more than ever, with so much competing for our time and attention, it's important that people can trust you. They trust your word. We're all just so busy. So you've got to be able to rely on people to follow through on those commitments. So I'm very big on that. Do what you say you're going to do. If I was to say anything else, I would say, be responsible as well. Be responsible at work. Be responsible, personally on your home life. Don't play the blame game. So yeah, those would be kind of the two themes that I live by.
How about you, Julia?
Thanks. This wasn't a hard one for me, but I love quotes. So it was really hard for me to narrow it down. But since it was Dolly Parton's birthday yesterday, I chose one of my favorite quotes from her, and it's "Find out who you are and do it on purpose." And that's one that, even at our office on a daily basis, I think, we're not even aware we're doing it, but we unconsciously do this on a regular basis. I make a purpose to do this at the very minimum once a year, and I really break it down, So something I do and I share with all of our staff is I recognize what are my highest values. So when I talk about highest values, it's financial, it's family, it's faith, it's social, it's leadership, it's physical health. And I find that my values evolve every year. So which is why I think it's important to look at them every year at the very minimum. And a prime example, and I struggled with this one. So as a woman having children, they grow up, they leave home. All of a sudden you're trying to figure out what is the new purpose that's filling that void. And, so I really struggled with family, maybe not being my number one. And it kind of tousled between number one and number two for me. So, it's something I like to revisit often, but I love the topic of trying to figure out, who you are and the intent in doing it on purpose.
Great answer. Love that quote too, my Dolly. And how about you, Heather?
Great quotes and mottos for both Lorie and for Julia. And the simple one that I've been, kind of living by, that I grew up with, is the whole notion that it's so incredibly important to be fair. Even when others aren't being fair with you, it's really important. And it really is a reflection of who you are and a reflection of your integrity. There's that direct connection between fairness and integrity. But when I thought about, the whole notion of what you live by, the one thing that I've learned over the years is, and the thing that I'm trying to instill in my daughters, I have 2 girls, is establish who you are, to Julia's point, and establish your core values. Identify what's most important to you and use that as your guiding light. That's your guidepost in life, professionally and personally. And, over the years, you figure that out. But if somebody could come back to me and say, day one of my career, establish your core values, that for me has been the most, definitely the most rewarding and the most clarifying point whenever you're going through, a time where there's potentially conflict, or you have different voices in your head and you're trying to understand and just figure out what's the right path forward. Your core values will never lead you astray. That will take you down the whole notion of always doing what's right. So that would be my kind of the motto is establish your core values and live by them.
Great answers. Yeah, I see a lot of themes running through the answers also. I'm just going to add to that myself, actually. I like you ladies, that, it's constantly changing what quote I definitely am living by, I feel in the moment. The last 8 months, like many, I have been trying a lot of new things. So I've been living by the quote, be brave enough to suck at something new. I have been trying
like that.
new things and sucking at a lot of them, but also discovering talents and skills. And I think, one of them is the use of technology, which we're all using so much, right? But I think that being brave is something that I am taking on, and also showing my 2 little girls, because they're around me all the time now, more than ever, that I'm trying to live by, which is sometimes uncomfortable, but also something I aspire to do. So thanks for that, ladies. And so that answer kind of leads me into my next question, which is, what are some of the challenges that you faced as a leader, and maybe in particular as a female leader in this industry, and how have you overcome them, or how are you still working to overcome them?
So we're talking about challenges that we face as female leaders.
Thank you.
I was reiterating kind of, Heather, a follow-on to some of your comments, but kind of making tough decisions as to, what you could live with and what you couldn't live with, in the work environment, tying into your core values, working with integrity, being fair to people. Sometimes the work environment can be very tough, but it's a matter of working with the culture that ties in with your core values. So making those tough decisions, as I said, is where the boundary is going to be crossed, what I could live with, what I couldn't live with. And secondly, I would say, second guessing myself and listening to some of that negative speak sometimes, in our head, and trying to squash that, the words that perhaps suggest you don't know what you're doing, or leading you to interpret a situation that maybe isn't quite right. So trying to shut that negative speak off. And the way I handle that is I actually have people that I talk to that I can trust. And, I might, raise the issue with them and ask for different perspectives on a situation. And they might, tell me I'm out to lunch, tell me I'm, making things up in my head, tell me to smarten up. Or they may say, no, you're absolutely right. I agree with you. So, it's how you handle that speak that doesn't serve you. And that kind of ties into, again, having those mentors or having those folks that can help you through those situations.
Good point. Agreed. Julia?
I love that, Lorie. I think all leaders have challenges, and I was truly trying to pinpoint as a female what some of those challenges are. And just to add on to some of the things that Lorie said is, I often get comments, that you're too emotional, or or people making assumptions of what my knowledge or my experience is. Now, whether that's based on, externally from a judgment of appearance, I tend to make light of a lot of things. I like to have fun. Often that's taken as that I'm not a serious person. Anyone that's worked with me knows that it's actually quite the opposite. I'm very focused. And when it comes down to business, I get down to business. But I've also learned that in those situations, I can't place the blame on those people for making the assumptions. I need to speak up. I need to say, this is who I am. This is not so much this is what I've done, because I think that's awkward for me. But just putting myself out there a little bit so that, I don't put that wall up and people can gain an understanding of my experience and what I've done. And, the emotional part, I think that's an asset. And I sometimes think that we get labeled as emotional, maybe because our voices are higher. I don't know. It's not something I spend a ton of time thinking about, because like I said, I am focused and I'm a bit of a keep your head down, and sometimes there's those obstacles, but for the most part, I've had pretty positive experience.
Fantastic. I actually hear a lot of the opposite. I'm not emotional enough. So it never, tomato, isn't it? It's never enough for anybody else if you're looking for feedback. We have a great question here, kind of on that leadership topic, from Jody saying, is there any events or courses that you found help develop your career with leadership? She's a junior broker in the industry looking to start working towards future leadership skills. It's a great question.
Well, I can jump in. I think getting involved, there's tons of leadership courses that you can do. Every organization, has them. Hopefully they provide some through work, but certainly through the educational bodies within the industry. But my suggestion is always to get involved, because there's nothing better than, firsthand practice. So getting involved in committees, getting involved in associations, getting involved in networking groups, that's a great way to hone your people skills and leadership skills. I'm involved in the Insurance Supper Club. The Canadian Broker Network is a member, which is an international association of female executives, getting some good traction in Canada, but they launched a number of years ago in the UK and some other European countries. So, any of those types of opportunities, even with ISC, the Supper Club, they do have different categories for where you are in your career, aspiring leaders, women just getting into the industry. So I would look to, in addition to courses, I would look to put your hand up and get involved in some of these offshoot organizations and networking groups.
I would add to,
yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Cutting in. I would add to all of Lorie's points that I would challenge principal brokerage owners to allow their people to network within the different associations that they're members of. And if they're not members of them, join them. The opportunities that there is, and when you say that a junior person, I'm not going to assume you're under 40, but there's the Professional Young Insurance Brokers Association in most provinces. There's the Insurance Brokers Association in all provinces. And, the possibilities are endless. There's subcommittees off of every single one of those boards. And not that you have to join a board, but they constantly host events. And those events are so valuable for networking. And the other point would be, do some looking around on LinkedIn. Like there's, I get messages all the time, and I usually respond, unless it's a recruiter, because I'm not currently looking. But if someone reached out to me with a question like that, I would absolutely respond. So.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that there's lots of women, lots of people willing to help too.
Yeah, right.
We're a great industry, and there's lots of avenues for support.
And I think that that's really important, the power of mentorship. And it doesn't have to be formally called mentorship,
Right.
but it can, like you both of you spoke to, and Heather did earlier, about talking to people in your industry, just networking, whatever you want to call it, right? I like to call it mentorship, but it is about giving and receiving. It is about often, having that brain to pick, sometimes an ear to listen, sometimes a push in the right direction, but it's about asking and starting that relationship, and cold calling, which in your guys' industry, you're very used to. So I think that, you should take that upon yourself and invest in your own skills, which I think is really important. But you do have to be brave. And I think that that's really nice to hear, that you both are open to people doing that and to reaching out. Welcome back, Heather. I don't know if she can hear me. So sticking on that theme of leaders and leadership, is there a leader that you look up to?
Yeah, I would say there isn't one leader that I look up to. My comment around leadership would be, I think it's important to acknowledge that there are leaders at all levels, in the business world, in our communities, in our personal lives, many of whom are quite humble or even below the radar. It's interesting. Today is a very special day. I mean, we're Canadians, but I'm sure we've all been watching the inauguration, and we know what's going on there. I mean, hey, the entertainment's been awesome. But I was watching Nancy Pelosi a few weeks ago on 60 Minutes. First off, I couldn't believe she was over 80. My God, there's hope for all of us. But more importantly, she's had such an incredibly challenging job, standing up to Donald Trump with confidence and courage. And of course, look at what's happening today with the inauguration and Kamala Harris, the first female vice president. But, I contrast those very powerful women to a female friend I have come to know and respect, who leads a community fitness program in my community. Her ability to just give unconditionally and to build this network of followers through her compassion and selflessness is really incredibly inspiring. So again, I mean, there's lots of leaders that have terrific platforms, but I think there's also many leaders that I admire, as I said, they're a little more humble and don't necessarily have a big platform. So leaders at all levels.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Lorie. I really had to think about this question. Mm-hmm. I find I'm a person who observes a lot. I'm not, sometimes I jump out of the gate really quickly, but typically I observe and I like to pick out pieces of people that I admire or that I feel are really bold and confident. So, but I totally agree. It's comes from up high. It's, there's really no level for me. Here, and as an example, our janitorial service that comes to the office every day. I've had the same person for probably 20 some years. And if I'm there when she's there, I always make sure I have a purposeful, meaningful conversation with her, because I learned so much. Yeah. I learned something so by being curious, I guess that's my point. I tend to be curious, and I want, I draw out, I guess, what I need from different people. Heather's not on the call, but Heather is someone I admire greatly, and but I draw from my own children. Just different lessons. I find it valuable to be able to draw from anyone and everywhere that you encounter.
Yeah, I love that. I think that many of us always think that it's one person, but it can be the embodiment of many different skills and values and morals and a variety of different people. And it's just not a title. And I think that, that is fantastic that you both have answered in the same way, because I truly believe that myself. So is there's something that, we had a lot of people talk to us about, which was about self-promotion. A lot of women struggle with self-promotion, and it can be called lots of different things, confidence, self-promotion. So how do you help other women find their voice within your industry, or in general in their careers?
My first?
Start with you.
Go for it, Julia.
I think the very first point that I want to make about that is you have to make yourself approachable. If you're not approachable, you're not going to be able to share anything. And that's something I've learned specifically over the last 10 years. I make a point of the people I work with, they know my door is open. If it's not open, they wait for it to be open. But, I lean on them to provide me a lot of information as well. We have a lot of conversation that I'm not a mind reader. So, if you don't tell me what's on your mind, we'll stay here all day with me guessing at it. So, it's just, leadership is a privilege, and I think being approachable has to be number one. But, also keeping people engaged. You do, like I said in the introductory part, is, you do get stagnant. You do get plateaued out at a certain point. So if you keep people engaged, and we also talk about putting ourselves in uncomfortable positions, situations like this one. No, just challenging yourself, right? So, we as an example, we had a campaign at our office, and we have these large banners. My face was on them, and I'm not comfortable with that. So I got two other people to put their face on some banners, and they're around town. So like keeping people engaged and knowing that they're a part of things is really important, because at the end of the day, if you're not encouraging the people you're leading, I think you've failed.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Julia. I think as well, is kind of the two perspectives. One is about the individual, and the other is about the leaders who are already in positions of leadership. And as I said earlier, personal responsibility is really important in order to be successful. And Julia, you said it. You said it right. You have to put your own hand up. You have to make yourself available to opportunities. You have to be personally responsible for your own aspirations and your career. But again, I think people are there to help you once they understand what you are looking for and what you're interested in. It's not our job to run around and make sure everybody's okay. But it is our job as leaders, if individuals have expressed, a keen interest or potential aptitude and are prepared to put their hand up, it's on us to provide that platform, to allow that to happen. And not everybody has a platform. I talked earlier about leaders. Certainly world leaders, they have a platform. Leaders of organizations have a platform. But there's lots of great aspiring leaders out there who just need to get their hand up so others can help move them along.
Right. Agreed. I like that. And I do definitely also believe that when it comes to self-promotion, that we all need to be able to tell our story, and that we all need to be able to seize the opportunity to present ourselves in our story. In insurance, you're in sales all the time, but I truly believe we are all in sales all the time.
We are all in sales. That's right. That's right.
And so, how do we perfect that pitch? How do we perfect who we are, and how do we present ourselves? And I think that many of us don't spend enough time thinking about that and how we frame that and seize those opportunities when we're looking to scale up or get to the next level, or look for help in order to do that from our leaders. So I think that that is something that I hope all of those listening will be thinking about, that who are they and what is their story and how do they present that, and in what form. So thanks for that, because I do think that that's super important, not only now, but definitely going into the future. And so if you could give young aspiring women, especially in insurance, but young aspiring women leaders, a little piece of advice, what would that be today?
You want me to go first this time, Julia?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I've got kind of three thoughts. I would say have mentors and advisors in your life that you trust. We've talked a lot about mentors, and they don't have to be formal mentors either. They're just people that you trust. Life is complicated, getting more so all the time. There are different paths and different doors that get opened. So draw on the experience from others that have gone before you. And I mentioned kind of negative self-talk. So stop that. Stop negative self-talk. Put your hand up for opportunities. Let others know, what you're interested in. Life is a journey of experiences. And the more you have, the more enjoyable it's going to be and the more success will come from it. The other thing I want to just emphasize, and I say this to my kids who are young adults now and in their own careers, and I'm learning this the hard way now because time is ticking on, but life goes by so quickly. And, everybody talks about, having balance in your life and having it all. And you can have it all, but you may not have it all at the same time. So my point is, it goes by so quickly. It's okay to enjoy success, but success also comes from working hard. So, we don't want to look back in 20, 30 years and have regrets about what we did or didn't do. So my recommendation, my little tidbit is have a life plan for now and work that plan. Because before you know it, you will look back and, many years have gone by and you want to make sure you've had a great journey because there's so much opportunity out there. You just need to plan for it.
I really like that, Lorie. I've definitely noticed over the last few years, you're so right. Where has the time gone?
Yeah, where's the time gone?
Yeah.
So have we lost our moderator now too?
I think so. It's just us.
It's just down to you and I.
We'll keep going.
We can have, yeah. Okay.
As far as advice that I would give, I would say, oh, Thomas, we don't need you. I think find your inner circle, whether in your personal life, in your business life. In my life, those two tend to cross over. But I really believe that you become you become who you surround yourself with. So I think it's really important to surround yourself purposefully with who you want to be around, who like-minded people is very it's very rewarding. And stay away from those yes people. Especially in a business world, you want to see different perspectives. You don't want, it's like, do you want an accountant or a lawyer that just agrees with everything you say? Absolutely not. I surround myself with people who I trust, number one. And really the only way to find out who you can trust is to trust. But know your worth. Be authentic, be yourself. If you try to be someone else, it's not going to work. Yeah. So it goes back to find out who you are. Don't try to please everyone, and not everyone's going to like you. And I wish Manjit was on the screen now, because she posted something in the last few weeks that, about how some people aren't going to like you, and that's okay. And face your fears head on.
Be true to yourself, right? As you said,
yes.
It's more important to be true to yourself. And as you said, find your people.
Yeah.
It makes for a happier journey.
Yep. And at the end of the day, my work is important, but I don't want my life to be defined by my title at work. Right. I want it to be defined by that I'm a good person.
Yeah.
It's a pretty simple thought, way to think, but at the end of the day, it's quite rewarding.
So there's a question. What do we do for downtime? It's flying through the screen and Manjit's not here. So we'll just take it away, Julia. What do you do for downtime?
Well, for the last 10 months, usually I'm on a plane 2 to 3 times a month, and, with the different roles with the boards. Right now, I've been told I should be a spokesperson for Peloton because I'm obsessed with my Peloton bike.
Awesome.
And I've actually connected with a few insurance people on the Peloton bike because you can see who's from Canada. It's pretty cool.
That's neat.
But, you know, just trying to keep active, keep busy, but in the last 10 months, but still keep moving forward, right? Not using our current environment as an excuse to do nothing. So
absolutely. Yeah,
you know,
it's been, I mean, it's been an interesting time. And I think for a lot of us, it's allowed us to focus on back to basics. I've been working out every morning, Beachbody on demand. I have looked at Peloton, but I've stayed with Beachbody on demand. And I will mention, you know, just kind of a fun fact. I have been a ballet dancer for 40 years. And obviously I didn't turn into a prima ballerina. And my feet are paying the price for that, those years of ballet dancing. But, you know, dance, ballet, just like sports and many of these other activities, they help us stay focused. They help give us discipline. They help us keep organized, which are all great for, you know, being successful in business today.
Yep. Routines and habits.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I'm looking, let's just look at some of these questions and we'll just, you and I are both used to facilitating, so we can just run through this. Lots of great comments. Guys, give us some questions because we've lost our moderator and we lost Heather, so we'll just keep going. Lots of great thoughts to listen to. Great comments, everybody. Heather, you might need to unplug your power cord from your modem and reboot your internet connection. I don't know if she's tried to do that.
I think there's a few questions, Lorie, that we haven't answered. I see your name by one. What, in your opinion, are key characteristics of a good leader? We may have touched on it slightly, but
yeah, that's a great question. I guess for me, what I would say is, I think all good leaders require, you know, obvious specific skills, things like competency, you know, some experience, adaptability, technical skills appropriate to the role, certainly good communicators. But I think where the real difference lies in great leadership, leading to great organizations, and often, quite honestly, where women's shine, but it's not unique to women, but it's on the soft skill side. So I would say things like self-awareness and that emotional intelligence, willing to ask great questions and listen and learn, intuition. You mentioned curiosity, Julie. I would say absolutely curiosity. Be curious all the time to learn, be inquisitive. Empathy, having confidence, but not afraid to say what you don't know. You know, being able to leave those egos at the door. I think that builds trust and it builds great relationships too. And selflessness with a real willingness to help others and to help others unconditionally. And I think these types of qualities, characteristics, and skills really do help to build trust. They help build healthy teams, and ultimately they help build great organizations as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Would you add anything to that?
You covered off a lot. I would add, the one thing that I would add that a good leader does is sees people. You know, not just visually sees them, but takes the time to see them. A challenge I have had that I've had to solve on my own is, you know, I mean, everyone's been that person that goes to a networking event, doesn't know anybody, you know, grabs the glass of wine or soda, whatever your choice, and stands not in the corner, but by themselves and is uncomfortable, awkward. And so I find myself, because I have gotten to know a lot of people, when I walk into a room, I try to find those people, but I try to see everybody because I think it's really important. It would, I think it would be, you know, trying to get the right word, you know, that I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I knew that that I didn't make that effort.
Yeah.
So I think a good leader tries to see everyone, and, you know, leadership and how your company operates starts at the top, and it trickles its way down. And the very opposite of that, your organization is only as good as its people, and the leader has to take responsibility in that.
Agreed. And I think the higher up an organization you are, it becomes less about you, to your point, and more about your people.
Yeah.
You know, you're the one in senior positions, you're the one that has to accept responsibility when things don't go right, but you also have to give it to others when things do go right. So it's, you know, we've got to be cognizant of that ego and focusing on others.
Yeah.
There was a question in here about what is the most come up with a challenging situation, I think it was, and what did we do to deal with it? How do we handle it? Can you think of a challenging situation in your career and what you did about it?
You know what? I mean, just what's so front and center right now, the last 10 months, I would say has been the most challenging. You know, it's unprecedented. We didn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I would say that's one of my biggest challenges. Another challenge, you know, and a positive challenge would, you know, I partnered with the Sharp group of companies 2.5 years ago, and that's not an easy transition. But at the end of the day, you know, you choose the things that are right for you, that you feel are best for your organization, for your life and work balance. And, you know, those are probably the two toughest things I've done over the course of the last few years. How I dealt with them head on.
Yeah.
You know, transparency, honesty. You know, I consider myself to be very transparent. And that's something at our own office where I've received compliments on over the last few years. So it's something I'm proud of.
Yeah, I think there's scenarios that you can live with. There's scenarios that you can try and change. And as you said, hit it head on. And then you have to kind of decide, you know, if it's time to move on. So you've got kind of those three doors. And Manjit, are you back with us now? Julie and we've just been having a nice chat.
You guys did great. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Hey, listen, I'm gonna just plow ahead with something, because you know, you're a great leader, and I know this has been a focus on the insurance industry, but I'm sure people on this conference call would love to hear a little bit about you and how you got to where you are at. Am I too bold to go out and ask that question?
No, I guess why not? You've been hosting, so tables. You know, I love so much of what you guys are talking about, and I do agree that no matter what industry it is, and by chance, you know, the liquor industry and the insurance industry have a lot of parallels in that they're very male dominated.
We like a lot of liquor. You're right.
Yeah. And we need a lot of insurance for what we make.
You're right. We do have a strong connection.
But I think when it comes to leaders and women in particular, is that there are a lot of parallels. And I get the question asked, and it's been asked a couple of times in the private chats to me, is that how do you know when you're trying to scale your career and you know, move up the ladder? How do you know that you're making the right decision? And, you know, that is a really tough question to answer, because I've really discovered that good decisions come from experience. And how do you get experience? You make a lot of bad decisions along the way.
Absolutely.
And it really helps that if you have not only a great way to process what those bad decisions are and the lessons from them, because there always are lessons around in those decisions and those experiences, but a great group of people around me. And I think that has been one of the keys to my success, is really having a lot of great people beside me, no matter what I'm doing, whether that be on the home front with my family, whether that be on all the hats that I wear, whether it be my own company or being a venture capitalist on TV. or, you know, a board member or a philanthropist, no matter what I'm doing. It might be me that you're seeing, but it takes a great big team beside you to make it all work and happen. And I think that as women, we think that we have to have this balance, this work-life balance that has been sold to us. But I truly believe that's bullshit.
I do too.
Thank you.
I do too.
It took me a while to get rid of that mom guilt, that CEO guilt, you know, whatever you want to call it, to understand that there is no such thing. You just got to live every day, do your best, and be happy at what you do, and know that you're giving your all.
And some days are going to be better than others. Some days, you know, you'll be going full steam. You'll have maybe it's unbearable, the amount of work, but that too passes, you know, and, you know, life is not this consistent line. It's up and down and always evolving and changing.
Totally, I agree with you. Yeah. I think a part of that, and a theme that I've heard through a lot of the answers today, is that communication piece. And I think that that is really important, not only when you're a leader, but no matter what you do and where you are in your career, that communication piece is really important, that you're always communicating what you're doing, how you're doing it, and that you're asking for help along the way, because none of us do it on our own.
Yeah. Yep. And I think it's important to emphasize that it's okay to ask for help too, for anybody, no matter what level you're at. You know, we can't know it all, and it's okay to be vulnerable, you know, and to show what you don't know and ask for help. Because again, I think we said generally people like to help others.
Yep. Well, one of the things, to your point, Manjit, often, like as women, if an opportunity presents itself, we have 1,000 questions in our head. Do I have time for it? What will I do with the kids while I'm doing this? What if they need me? You know, how is this going to affect life at home? Instead, the mindset has to change, and we have to start saying yes, and then worry about the rest after. Yeah. Assuming the skill set is there. But, you know, I think that's a mistake that many women make, is
second guess themselves.
Yeah, say yes and figure it out later.
And, you know, I'll tell you something funny. An insurance executive, a guy who I have great respect for, said that to me one day. He was a senior executive, one of the main insurance companies. And he said, you know, Lorie, he said, most guys, they may not have the capabilities, but they put their hand up anyways. Mm-hmm. You know, they'll figure it out, as you've said. He said, most women, they won't. They'll have that negative talk in their head. They'll talk themselves out of the opportunity. You know, if they don't have 110% of the experience and skills required, they won't put their hand up. So again, his comment was, you know, encourage women to go forward and just give it a try, put the hand up, and experiences and opportunities will come to you.
Yeah, I completely agree. That courageous part, being courageous, because a lot of people talk about courage, and I truly believe that we all have to be courageous, no matter what we're doing. But I think there's a big misconception about what being courageous means, because I don't think that having courage doesn't mean that you don't get afraid. Trust me, I get afraid a lot. I just don't show it so good. But I do think that having courage means that you fight through that fear and you keep going, regardless of having that fear. And I think having fear is actually a healthy thing, because it really does make you be on your toes. It makes you research. It makes you be prepared. It makes you overthink in the right way sometimes. But it is definitely something that we all do need to have, is courage in a lot of different things that we do, and which often have a lot more reward than risk. And I think that I hope that, risk-taking, calculated risk-taking, that's my engineering background talking, is I think important, and something that sometimes as women we can overthink. And my husband would tell you so, because I make spreadsheets also for every decision that I make. Also the overthinking and the engineering. It's how I calculate risk and what I know what I'm comfortable with, to a certain degree, right? So I do think having courage is really important. And so I'm going to ask you, ladies, is there a book that you guys have read lately during the pandemic? I heard before I got kicked out was that you were working out, which was great to hear. So what was your mind? What have you read anything or, listened to any podcasts lately that have really resonated with you?
I listen to tons and I read lots, but gosh, even trying to recap some of the names that I would recommend, I probably can't come up with any one thing. There's certainly tons of great podcasts out right now. Yeah, I can't recall anything that stands out though.
Well, here's a minute for self-promotion. I guess I have a new one.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yes, the Manjit Minhas podcast. So, how do you do it?
You know what? I have a very short commute to work, so I haven't really jumped on the podcast wagon. Although you're on my list if I do, because it keeps popping up on my Twitter and LinkedIn.
Yes,
I would say, in the last year, I've read a bunch of fiction. I have to turn my brain off. It lets me go to a place where, I don't think about anything else. So, at the risk of sounding like I'm not reading self-help books or something, completely true stories, it's been my outlet to kind of get away from the real world. So
that and a lot of Netflix, Crave, Amazon. Yep. Have you seen Bridgerton? That's pretty awesome. That's a name I remember.
Well, and I think that's great too. For our mental health and stability to do things that also keep our interest and actually have our subconscious mind going all the time in different ways.
You need an escape. Yeah.
Agreed. I recently read Never Split the Difference. Because I'm a believer in negotiation and always honing that skill set. And so we are having lots of debate in our office about that book. I don't know if you ladies have read it, but definitely one that I would recommend for some food for thought.
Yeah.
And then,
this is the negotiation one, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It is about negotiation.
Yeah.
I do try to read a lot of books about every 6 months, take courses in negotiation, because I truly believe that it's a skill set that everybody, no matter what you do, something we should all be working at all the time, and building on that skill set, because none of us are born with the power of knowing how to negotiate or persuade. As it's called these days. So, I actually have a saying on one of my walls that I really do live by, and it's, you don't get what you deserve in life, you get what you negotiate. And I remind myself of that a lot, whether I'm negotiating for something big in my company or with my little girl on what to wear.
Sometimes they're the worst to negotiate with.
You got it. And I think that, if we can do some of those things that we do every day more consciously, I think that it helps us really understand where we come from and why we are working for what we do.
Super.
I see Tom, so that must be time to wrap up, ladies.
Yep. If my head's forward on the screen, that means it's time to move on to the next one. I want to say thank you, ladies. Lorie, Julia, Manjit, this was a great conversation.